Alongside entrepreneurship, the arts is an area that Cloré Beauty has made the biggest investment in the community. From supporting beauty micro-influencers through the Cloré community campaigns and initiatives, collaborating and hiring creative artists on various projects, and of course, Cloré's annual financial commitment of sponsoring Toronto Carnival and multiple carnival bands, including Saldina, Fantasia, Revelers, and many more. We'd like to discuss more ways in which Black creatives in Canada, more specifically Toronto, Ontario, can be nurtured and positioned for success. Eboni, my first question is for you. So, a conversation that is not had enough in the creative community is finance. We hear the starving artist narrative a lot, and we have almost normalized struggle for creatives in society. But do things have to be so financially challenging for people on creative career paths?
Absolutely not. It's fun, I guess. Like when you think of some personality types, we were just talking about Grant Cardone and how sometimes when you're struggling, it pushes you to go harder, right? But like the whole concept, I always say to my clients, I'm not going to tell you to eat cultural reference bully beef, 100 days out of the year so that you can become a millionaire, unless you want to do it. Right. And so I think this idea of the struggling artist also is rooted in this idea that when you want to do something, you just drop everything and do it, right? It doesn't factor in the fact that like your favorite actress or actor probably had an emergency fund before they picked up and moved to California. You can do things spontaneously like that, but just like at the beginning of this conversation, you have to have a plan. And so I always believe if you want to be an artist, 100% go for it. Leverage what you have currently going to fund that dream. And therefore, when you take it on, you're not eating Kraft dinner every day. You're not eating Mr. Noodles. I can't even imagine the life, tin mackerel, all those things every single day. I can't imagine it. And so you don't have to choose it. And yet some people might, because it may drive them to actually build those successes. But have your savings, have your emergency fund. And like Jackie mentioned earlier, have a benchmark, have a plan. If, I'm doing this for 3 years and I'm kind of out of my emergency fund and I'm struggling and I have to do all of these crazy things just to survive, implement another income stream. It doesn't mean that you give up on your dream or your goal, but it means that now you have to say, I have no option but to get a part-time or work a full-time, and then again, work towards funding my goals and dreams. But you don't have to struggle. Struggle is an option, and it can be part of the hustle or it can be part of your downfall.
I love how you put that. I think so many artists coming into the industry automatically adopt the starving artist ideology of I'm gonna have to struggle. And again, alluding to your point, you don't have to if you don't want to. And some people perform better under that pressure, but it's not required for you to reach success. Brilliant.
It's a narrative that really needs to die.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm not into Black pain stories. I'm tired of the Black struggle. Like we now have tools in ways we can overcome. Let's start glorifying overcoming that and being more progressive. And that's how we move forward as not just individuals, but as a culture.
And let me take it one step further in planning, right? I think in the age of social media, it's very easy to see what the end result looks like.
Absolutely.
Before you see the strategy that went behind it, the planning that went, the time that went into it, right? So I guess if we could put this in the form of a question, what would the BTS or the behind the scenes of those highlight reels that you see on social media look like? So you're planning to go full time as an artist. What does that planning kind of process look like?
Well, what's so funny to me is that a lot of artists, entrepreneurs, business owners, we go into that field because we're trying to abandon our 9 to 5, right? Like we don't like our jobs and we don't want our time controlled. We want to have more time. Wrong field. If you want to have more time, find a good employer, right? And the reason for that, honestly, is that, as a creative, you have to set a schedule. You need to be booking meetings. Like Dwayne and Jackie have already mentioned, you need to be building relationships. You need to be doing avid research. Like when I think of influencers, they make you think like, I'm just on a beach today and they spend hours. Like, for people who have to write grants up until all hours of the morning, we don't work 9 to 5. We work 9 to 9 to 9 to 9 to 9. And so we have to like really just build that discipline. And so BTS, right? Schedule. right? Building a team eventually, because if you want to scale, you can't do it all alone. Investing in yourself 100% of the time. Like when I think of somebody who is a public speaker, you need to take some days to rest your voice, right?
Absolutely.
An influencer, you gotta go get a facial just to make sure your skin's like, all of these things are really important to the success of your business. And then last but not least, it all ties back into money, profitability. If this is a passion project, and let's say that Ontario one day says you don't need any money, go to the grocery store and buy your food for free, do it, right? But I don't think Ontario is gonna do that. And so if it's a passion project, then go ahead. But if it's not, and it's something that you wanna build out into a profitable business, you now need to set benchmarks into how much you should be making. You need to have KPIs. Everybody hates KPIs, key performance indicators. They don't want a job because they don't want to be measured on these things. The same thing that gets you a raise at the end of the year from your boss is the same thing that should give you a raise or a go ahead at the end of your year as a creative. And so having all of these things to make sure, again, you're running a sustainable business, something that you can both love and live off of.
And can I add, while you work on your business, and sorry, in your business, work on your business. Okay. While you work like in your business, work on your business. So I have a habit of treating myself as a client. So I have client days. The Well Connected is a client. So what does that mean? It's updating the website. It's getting the small admin stuff done. It's pitching myself for speaking opportunities. Whatever it is that I want to do, the same energy you give out is creating pretty packages to send out for your clients. Create those pretty packages to send for business opportunities.
Absolutely.
So we have to spend that time working on our business as well and treating yourself as you would treat a customer, right? Because we forget all that. Our housekeep always ends up the last thing we do. But when you put your housekeeping, when you clean your house, guests are more welcome to come in all the time. You're not scrambling behind your guests. Right?
It's that having that structure.
Exactly.
Right? Like, what does my Mondays look like?
Yes.
What does my Tuesday each day of the week? Which day is going to be working on my business, in my business? What part of the day is marketing? What part of the day is sales? What part of the day? And having that structure, because once that's defined, then you really know if you have a business, and you can really understand where your profitability is. And, you know, when you think about, you know, how much is it that you want to make as being an artist or being whatever it is that you're doing, you really got to figure out, this is the dollar value that I want to make an hour, and or whatever it is per year, and then extrapolate that back down to an hour. And are you actually investing that time to pay yourself that money? Right? And understanding that. And if you're not, then you need to get somebody else to do it if it's something that's not worth the value that you're willing to pay yourself.
And learn when to outsource.
Exactly.
Learn when to outsource that, but also being strict on your values. Like if you know, and you talked about, you know, I believe in working whenever I open my eyes to closing my eyes, because I don't know what hour of the day that's going to be, but also, you know, knowing when you need to ask for help. And also keeping core to your values. If that means this weekend I have to work, guys, I can't go to the club. Or if I have to come home early because I have to do something, you have to be strict with yourself, because if you are not, it's not like you got a job that you could go to and be like, all right, well, I'll figure it out on Monday. Monday might mean a check is not coming. So you really have to be strict on your own personal values. And sometimes, you know, the fun that's happening now, it might seem like the end of the world, but the value that you're gonna, the reward you're gonna seek later for putting in that time is so much more worth it.
It's shifting from that instant gratification idea where it happens right away because you've been doing it. When you build that consistency and that dedication is when it really expands. Brilliant. Eboni, I have another question for you. So what is the main piece of financial advice you have to offer Black creatives? That's a tough one.
It's a tough one. I would say it's gonna tie back into that emergency fund. Actually, scrap that. As a creative, you're working towards your dreams, right? And your dream can't just be, I want to have, 50,000 followers on Instagram. It can't just be, I want to make $100,000 a year. Oh my gosh, if you make $100,000 a year in Canada, my goodness, right? So like every goal that you set, it needs to be tied back to a bigger dream. And as much as you might be like listening and like that, you said financial and that's dreams. Like, so where does the two connect? Every dream has a dollar value. And so in your business, like remember that earlier piece I talked about allocation. When you're feeding your business financially, you also need to feed yourself financially. Because here's the conversation that a lot of entrepreneurs don't want to have. If you're running a business and you're not making money from your business, there's no point. Like, you're better off just, again, building that career. And entrepreneurship and being a creative is not for everybody, right? Because it's tough. It takes a lot of hours. And so really just dial back on the dreams that you have for yourself and the dollar value attached. And once you've established that, you need to save. Like, if I could like be like my dad, like, you must just put something aside, right? And it's important because at the end of the day, if you look back at your business and everything was nice and you built great relationships, but you have nothing, or you can't retire, or you can't provide for your family the way that you wanted to, again, pointless, right? And so you want to just make sure you're saving emergency fund. I even have, like, I've got a travel fund, I've got a car fund, I've got a house fund, I got a financial independence account. And what that means is when I feel rich, I'm gonna touch it. And so you need to have all of those because again, that's what you're working towards. So always adopt a habit of saving. If you can only start by saving $10 a month, that's great. Eventually scale it up and ensure that your goals that you're setting is, if I can only save $10, $25 by next year this time, I can save more.
Right. I'll go ahead and put in a little Jamaican proverb there, which is every mickle make a muckle.
Yes.
So you put a little bit away and it'll grow and you'll see it grow. Brilliant. Brilliant. Okay, Jackie, my next question is for you.
What's up?
So when we talk about cultural impact, we're talking about the influence that Black creativity has on society, which we know is large. How can Black people begin protecting their IP and start getting the credit and payment they deserve for the impact they have on culture?
You know, that's an interesting one because we're in the business of just creating content to go viral, putting stuff out with the hopes it goes somewhere, but really having your business name or IP very consistent over social media. Like, if you type up is well connected or well connected to you will find me for the most part at the front. Everything is the same. Watermarking your content, having a signature, something within your content. As a community, if you see something that was originally done by a friend or somebody else, do the due diligence. It takes seconds to tag that person. It takes minutes to ask somebody, hey, this is the right person. So for instance, I remember there's a Toronto media personality. He kind of went viral for a few things that he did, really cool stuff. And I remember a really big US social media platform posted and was a I went, slid in the DMs and said, hey, this is who he is. I need you guys to tag him as a creator. He's not my client. He is a friend, an associate, but I made sure, and they corrected it immediately. And it literally takes 3 seconds. We are so quick to repost something our celebrity did, the Kardashians did, somebody else did, but a smaller content creator who, you know, people are profiting off of what they did. It takes nothing to find the source. Even when you repost, when I repost stuff online, I try to go back as many chains as I can to find the original. If I will see their little TikTok watermark, I will see and find them on TikTok, find their actual Instagram, and actually tag them in that as well, because it goes a long way. So, protecting your IP is a hard thing because creative intellectual property is creative. You know, I can say something that you kind of take in and recreate and readapt. So again, having those watermarks, you know, really making sure that you're posting and you're reposting and you're tagging yourself. Self-promotion is the biggest form of promotion, whether people consider it being too confident or too cocky or whatever the case may be. You really have to support your own self. You got to be your biggest cheerleader. And again, Instagram, TikTok, all these things, it's your own TV network. You know, there's no longer the days you got to go to all these big networks. It's your own platform. If you are not advocating for yourself, you've missed the mark. So if someone has copied your stuff, do not feel ashamed to call them out. Celebrities nowadays are calling people out. There's a lot of brands that are calling people out. You know, Sasha Gay, Flaws of Couture, an amazing content creator, beautiful girl in the city. She's had brands steal her design. She called them right out. And yes, some people thought she shouldn't do that because it could damage her brand. She knew her worth. And she said, hey, you guys copied my stuff. That is not okay. I need credit. She's not asking for money. Give me credit for my intellectual property. Don't feel afraid to call people out on their BS.
And it's also about taking up space as Black creators. Like in so many other spaces where we're minimized, our voices especially are minimized. And in the world of content creation, you know, it's so easy to repost, to find something that's been done and never do the due diligence of finding who is it that started that. And it goes such a long way just to have credit. I know so many folks are like, well, what's that gonna do? It's a lot. It can do a lot.
It's respect. It's a matter of respect. Like, even if I say something that my friend always says, I always will say, oh, my friend S so-and-so said this, because it's not mine. I'm just using what you said because I like it, but I'm giving credit to the source. And does she get paid for it? Does it go a long way? Am I being paid for it? No. But it's just a matter of bottom line respect. Definitely does a lot for people.
Absolutely.
I also think, to add to that, like, really quickly, when we think about education and educating people outside of our community, one thing that I love about social media is everything is popularized. Like, Black culture right now and different, functions of Black culture is so popularized and amusing right now. But by the time you get to digest it, you don't really know the history tied to it. You don't know who created that. And so I think, from the perspective of educating other communities about our culture, it's increasingly important to make sure that we're adding those tags so that people know where things came from.
Every summer around carnival and festival season, we enjoy many events hosted by the community, and after the events, the press coverage can sometimes be very interesting. What are some things that we should/need to improve upon as a community when hosting events to result in better cultural impact and better press coverage?
Yeah. So much I could say on this. I think first thing I'll say is that, I don't necessarily want to talk about the negative press coverage that the media decides to showcase, because within that, there's probably about a million other things that they could showcase. And I think it's incumbent upon us to really showcase and celebrate the joy of the event. All the other thousands or millions of people that are having a fantastic time. We don't control the media. The media have their goals and objective of what they want to, continue to infiltrate into society. It's really incumbent upon us, right? We're not going to change that. I think, well, not that we're not going to change that, but I think it's very, very important for us that we control our own narrative, right? There's always going to be people out there that are going to want to, placate to a certain audience. They're going to want to maintain certain stereotypes, and we cannot let that deter us. There's this idea that, you go to a certain event and there's going to be a violence. No, not necessarily. And if there is, it's a very small group, and the lion's share of the audience or the events are perfectly fine. Right? So let's talk about that. Let's celebrate that. If we talk about something that's negative, that's what people are going to believe is always going to happen. And it's not representative of the community.
Right.
So I think we just got to be careful about what it is that we're letting into our minds, what it is that we're believing, and understand it's truly propaganda to keep us down as a people, and to have us not realize our own strength, our own glory, and all of the things that, we bring into society.
Right.
So that's really how I would address that one.
That part.
Really,
Yes.
really that
Right.
part. Really that part.
I would also add, though, writing your own post press release after an event is extremely important. I said before, you have your own platform is your own network. So sharing your version, your interpretation of what happened at your event, sharing your stories is very important. And then hiring more Black writers, inviting more Black writers, culture writers from said publications, the independent magazines, because any press is press. So whether they be a big publication or small publication, have them there to continue to share our messaging and our narrative, because if more than one person said it, it has to be true, right? So the more people you can spread your message to, the more the negative is going to be outweighed by the, they didn't talk about this, we didn't talk about that. Because like you said, the media has their own agenda, but you consume what you want to consume. So if you put out information you want to consume, your audience will receive that, and then they will spread that message and trump the negative press.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
It's like taking that power back
Absolutely.
to ourselves
Exactly.
in the images we want to share.
Absolutely.
Very right in saying that media has their own goals of what they want to portray, but when we ourselves are the ones putting out the press releases, speaking more to the very exciting, positive, uplifting aspects of the events, then it really puts it on the consumer, really, of when you're taking away that positivity, where else can you go with that, right? You're taking that, not the negative aspect of it.
Well, every event is massive, regardless of the number of people that are coming. And, you know, sometimes if people are doing an event for the first time, they may not necessarily understand all of the components that you have to take into consideration to make sure the experience is a desired experience for your audience. Sometimes you may be planning an event and expect, you know, 500 people, but you have 1,000 people there. So you really got to look at, well, if 1,000 people come, do I have adequate security? Do I have adequate food? Do I have adequate emergency services? Do I have, you know, all the resources to ensure that whoever arrives at this event are able to get the experience that I've been selling? You know, organizing an event it's a big job. It's what I do full time.
Right.
And I do events for the community. I do corporate events, and there are a number of people involved, and everyone has to have their specific roles. Like there are large teams that are pulled together to make sure that each aspect of the event has ownership, has you know, people that are responsible, whether it be, you know, someone's responsible for the AV, the food and beverage, the lights, the security, the, you know, the registration component. And if you plan these events out properly, you know, you'll make sure that person coming into your door have a great experience from registration, and that will set the tone as they go in. And as they go into that event now, they start networking, having some fun. You know, then they see the lights, they see the AV, they start, you know, connecting with people. Then that really allows for a great event.
Right.
So the planning component of each of these events are critical to its success, and making sure that you have the right and adequate and educated and trained staff to make sure that you have a successful event.
Brilliant.
I would add to that, it goes back to knowing what your end goal is. What's the end user experience? When I do any event, I always look at what is the experience I want my users to walk away with, because your consumers, your event guests, it's like a wedding. Everybody goes to a wedding, you talk about the food, and you know that's the biggest thing you talk about. So you know, if that's what people are going to talk about, you want to make sure they have good food. So what do I want people to walk away and talk about, because they're going to obviously advocate for your event. But it's also spreading your end user experience, the goals, with everybody involved. Hey guys, this is the experience we want. Do you believe you will be able to uphold the standard that we're setting for this event? And that goes to the venue. That goes to the bar staff at the venue. This is how we operate. This is how we interact. If this is not being upheld and withheld, there will be repercussions for that, or we're not using this venue. Everybody needs to be in alignment with what the experience is and how we as a business, as a company, prefer to perform, because they might talk about the venue, but at the end of the day, they're going to say it was Dwayne's event or Jackie's event or Eboni's this, or whatever the case may be. So everybody in your party needs to understand, so they can be held accountable. And then when things do go wrong, if things do go wrong or something happens, as a business, you need to take accountability without blame. We need to take responsibility, own that, and then talk about a solution to how we're going to do better. A lot of the time it's, well, yes, this happened and this was sad, but there's no onus and there's no accountability, and that's where the community gets upset. And then again, looking at being realistic, a lot of events try to oversell. We know this is a thing because, you know, a lot of people don't show up, circumstances happening, but making sure that you have an overflow, you have a buffer for, okay, if we actually overexceed these numbers, what do we do? What does our return rate look like? And if there's no return, being active in communicating, this is how the event goes, you guys. If you do not show up at this time, we're being hard pressed on these things, and letting that communication be said far in advance. So there's no, I didn't know. It's on your socials, it's on your website, it's being communicated at the door, and all those things. And then, like you lastly said, the first impression is the biggest impression. And I tend to ask a lot to be the front of house person, the welcome person, because my bubbly personality sets the tone for the event, because that first interaction can domino affect the whole experience for the night.
Right.
Yeah, we call that in our systems, we call that the stakeholder journey. So we create stakeholder journey for each attendee type, and understanding, okay, well, we have a general attendee, we may have a sponsor, we may have the venue, we have all of these stakeholders, and what is the journey, and what is all the touch points, and within that journey, what are the milestones, and how are we addressing each of those milestones, and do we have a plan for each one of those milestones? So as we do that in every aspect of the event planning process, then we know if there's potentially going to be a problem, and then we solution that well before the event.
Yes.
Right. So this is why I was saying earlier, the planning aspect of it is critical to any event success.
Right. Right.
And you know, I like to call it rolling out the red carpet for my clients. What does that look like? Just because you're a general attendee or a VIP, the price point may be different, but the experience from me needs to be the same in terms of just level of respect. So what does that red carpet look like for each client, each attendee type, as you would say, and how do we communicate that? Just because someone's a VIP and someone's a general doesn't mean that they're not less important. The ticket type, they paid a different ticket type, their experience within that room is going to be different in terms of what the layout looks like, what the food and stuff looks like. But entering that door, everybody's Beyonce as far as I'm concerned, as soon as you step foot in my grounds.
What I'm really getting from both of your points is teamwork really does make the dream work.
Oh,
like,
1,000%.
As cliche as it is, to have everybody have the same vision, the same outlook, the same approach to ensuring that those goals are met. And if not, what's a contingency plan supposed to look like? How can everybody involved, all of the stakeholders involved, have a clear vision of what to expect? And that, I think, given from what we've seen with a lot of events that have happened, that have taken place, when the planning doesn't work, everything else falls through.
Absolutely.
If you fail to plan, you plan to fail.
Yes.
And when you can be as thorough as you can in your planning is when you're able to reach those successes in your
100%.
events. Awesome.
Last thing I'll add on that is that's 1,000%. But one of these notions I really want to erase out of conversations is that, you know, there's not enough or the right Black event planners out there. You know, we just did the Black North Initiative Excellence Gala where we had 1,000 people in there and it was all Black produced. Right. And I brought a bunch of different Black event professionals across every aspect of everything to do with events to produce and create this excellence gala. And it was a way for us to showcase that we are out there, we are capable, and we can do it at every other level. So it's all about the teamwork. And once you have the right team pulled together, you know, you can execute a flawless event.